Collaboration is the cornerstone of connections at work and making sure that we all maximize our level of activity to be most productive. Therefore, today I want to explore the art of organizational culture and the elements which have to be in place from a collective and individual standpoint so that we make sure that everyone puts their best foot forward while they're in the office. Because after all, it's true, teamwork indeed does make the dream work. Let's talk for a moment about the concept of internal motivation, because to get up every day and go to work when you don't view your job as a desired career is difficult, according to my friends over at CareerBuilder. Nearly 3 in 5, or 58% of Canadians, currently view their current job situation as just that, a job that pays the bills rather than a career that they enjoy. Meanwhile, according to a new survey conducted by the Harris poll, it found that nearly 7 in 10 Canadians believe that their employers are doing a good job of fostering a trusting, welcoming, and safe environment which fosters good communication and allows employees to communicate openly. However, there is still more work to do. While significant strides are being made by employers to break down those barriers of communication, the poll also found that only 40% of employees feel comfortable discussing personal issues with their manager or those at work, which affects their work performance. So, my friends, the question is, how do we make sure that the open lines of communication remain sustainable and welcomed? For some answers, I want to turn to my friend Diane Taylor. Diane is the founder and principal consultant of Glow Leadership. She's a renowned best-selling author, keynote speaker, leadership development coach, strategic human resources consultant with more than 30 years of experience in the field. She is passionate about helping others to reach their highest potential in their career and personal life. She has spent her career developing a deep understanding of how humans behave and how to bring out the best in them. What sets her apart, she believes, is her deep intuitive insights and empathy of others navigating the human experience. And Taylor joined me this week to tell me more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Wait for our conversation. So with that, Diane, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program. And I'm super excited to talk to you about human resources and leadership, my friend. Great to see you and happy Tuesday to you.
Happy Tuesday. I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Now, my friend, I know that you're a keynote speaker, a best-selling author. Your work is in leadership development and strategic human resources, my friend. And I know that you have over 30 years of experience across multiple professional industries, my friend. So I'm curious if we could begin our conversation by you telling me about your experiences, my friend, and what makes you so fabulous.
Well, I think I'm not sure what makes me fabulous, but I know that I feel fabulous when the people I work with get results and feel fabulous at the same time. Through my career, which has been serving people, my entire career, I've come to see that there's been a big push towards success at the cost of our wellness. And it's my philosophy that those things have to go hand in hand to really be sustainable and to create meaningful success and happiness. So I've always been committed to both success, but not at the cost of wellness. That wellness is what really propels us forward and creates that success and invites that happiness in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you're passionate specifically about helping people ignite their potential in their careers and personal lives, my friend. So, how do you think we can strike a healthy balance between the two?
Well, I think, there's some in my book, I talk about three obstacles to success. And the first thing that I speak to is the model we look to. We sort of look at work and life, and we put these in opposition to each other, which, when we have two hockey teams here in Canada playing each other, one's got to win and one's got to lose. It's not a win-win. So I prefer to look at the model as a model of wholeness, and that work is simply one of the relationships in our life. We also have a relationship with ourselves, a relationship with our community, our family, each one of our children, whatever other relationships we have to nurture each and every one of those to create wholeness.
Yeah, and Diane, I'm curious to ask you, what responsibility do you think employers have to really engage their employees and meet them where they are and really make them a key pillar or part of the fabric of their organization? What are your thoughts there?
I think it's really important, especially since we're in a war on talent, and we really need to, invite our people forward. I think as the newer generations are entering the workforce, they want to have a voice and be seen. I think, just if we're to take employee wellness just alone, the fact that, employers have wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars coming up with their top down approach to wellness that, might work for 3% of their people that like their gym membership. And creating opportunities for each individual to develop what works best for them. I think it's an employer's responsibility to empower their people to step up and be their best. I don't think it's each party has to meet in the middle and work together and collaborate together to optimize that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And Diane, I'm also curious to ask your opinion on effective leadership and conscious leadership and how you define that as a concept as a whole, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so conscious leadership is, being in a very self-aware state. And to easily define consciousness, it's when we move from a state of, instead of saying life is happening to me, we shift to a position of life is happening for me. And we understand that everybody's life is hard. We have challenges, but with those challenges come lessons. And when we choose to understand that and still be a champion and still show up and be our best selves and continue to grow and learn, we are in a conscious state. Mind Valley Academy says that only 30% of people are there. And there's 70% of the people walking on our planet that believe that life is happening to them. And that's not a very empowered state to be in. So my work, I help people move towards that state of consciousness and healing stuff from their past to set themselves free.
Yeah, absolutely. And my friend, I know that you've spent a large portion of your career studying human behavior and how humans respond to certain situations. So I'm curious, what's the most fascinating thing you've learned about the psychology of people over the years, my friend?
Well, there's different things about humans, and I can't just share one, but I'll share two that
Sure.
are helpful. Um, First of all, every human has needs, and often the human doesn't know what those needs are, so they can't communicate well with others how to meet their needs. When I work with clients, I intuitively understand quite quickly what their needs are. But in my book, there's a needs analysis for people that to help them figure out what are my needs. And then we walk through how can you communicate those things. That's a game changer. The other thing about humans is, and this has really been a part of my story for a long time, is human beings prefer bad over uncertainty. The only thing worse than bad is uncertainty. So if we're in a situation where there is uncertainty, which can be reframed as possibility, we'll often choose bad because that feels safe. And knowing that, what a leader needs to do is to always message, communicate in a way to create as much certainty for the people they're leading as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And my friend, I know that you experienced childhood tragedy that really has impacted the work that you do today, and it reinforced the importance of reclaiming the power that you have within yourself, my friend. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about that experience and how it really transformed your life, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was born into a, normal middle class family. My dad worked hard. I had a stay-at-home mom. I had a older sister that was 14 months older than me, and my life was great. I had all these people taking care of me, and I was adored, and life was good. And then 2 months before my fourth birthday, my older sister, died of cancer, and my world got turned upside down. And my parents went into a state of grieving, so that felt like an emotional level of abandonment. My partner, my soulmate, my sister was just gone, and I was left feeling very alone. So that didn't really come out as a challenge or a problem till I was 17 years old. And I was looking for my sister's birth certificate because in Alberta, the drinking age is 18. And I thought, if I can just find that birth certificate, I'll be able to go out to the clubs with my friends. So I went searching for this. And instead of finding that birth certificate, I found my mother's scrapbook of sympathy cards. And in that moment, that was like a grenade that went off. And all those years, those 13 years of unprocessed grief and emotion imploded. And in the next 3 months, I tried to commit suicide 3 times. After 3 times, I got the help that I needed, the lifeline, and I started my healing journey at that point. And I have been healing ever since then. And what I've really taken away from that is how that has made me who I am, how I respond to impacts. And I have a whole chapter in my book that talks about what are the impacts of my own story, because we each have a story and they're all different, but there's impacts, and some of the impacts are the same. For example, I I'm a reforming control freak. I couldn't control that situation. And ever since, I've just tried to control to keep everybody safe. Um, I've been a high achiever my entire life to prove to the world that I'm good enough to be the one that got to live. So things happen to us. We have trauma, and there's big trauma and little trauma, and sometimes we don't even know what the trauma is. But that creates an emotional wound that, if it is not healed, will create the way we show up. And speed that forward to what I do in my career. I'm very fortunate to be at the table with senior leaders when they're making decisions to promote people. It is never about the fact they're not the best at, they're the best at their job. They've got the credentials, but there's something there. There's a lack of ability to influence. There's something strange or weird that just isn't quite there. And that typically is an impact to something within them that isn't healed. So in my book, I help people walk through a process of, first of all, understanding the reasons why we're not being successful. Don't lie outside of ourselves. They're all within. And then some steps that I actually walk people through to start to go through the process and heal your whole being, your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual self, so that you can create this wholeness and begin to thrive.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that for sure. And just based on your personal story and experience, Diane, I want to ask you about the concept of resilience, because in my view, resilience is the answer to the test of adversity once adversity strikes. And I'll use myself very quickly as an example. So, Diane, I was born with cerebral palsy, and I found out at the age of 9 that I wouldn't be able to walk without the assistance of a walker, my friend. I was born 3 months premature, and I wasn't supposed to live past 3.5, and I'm now 35. So every day I wake up, for me, is a blessing, my friend. So I'm curious to ask you about how resilience can play as a superpower in our story of perseverance. My friend, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, resiliency is key. And I think there's a misunderstanding between what a lot of people soldier on. And I did that for a long time, and if I look at my parents and their experience, they soldiered on. Where real resiliency is built for me, and you've probably done this, Kevin, you've probably done a lot of work, and to look at your challenges and to shift them and to heal them so that you can strong up and show up strongly and be in this pure resilience state where it's not forced and it's natural, and it's coming from an empowered state versus a forced state. So I think, I love resiliency, but in order to create that, we need to be proactive and go deeper. And I think there's a lot of people out there soldiering on and maybe labeling that grit as resilience. But for me, resilience is light, and there's air to it. So those are my thoughts on resilience.
Yeah, and it's also important to make an investment in yourself, because, Diane, I always have an expectations. It's important to have our own internal level of expectations, because if we don't have a foundation of expectations for ourselves, it's hard to reach it for anybody else, isn't it?
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know for you as a coach, Diane, one of the things that you believe that sets you apart is helping people navigate the human experience with empathy, my friend. So tell me about the importance of empathy and how it helps you help other people navigate the human experience.
Yeah, I think the reality is every human being is hurting in some way. That's the human experience. We come to this earth plane and we have struggle and we have pain, and we grow as we move through that. And, we become more conscious as we move through that. But I think we're all in our own little worlds thinking, I'm the only one that is struggling. I'm the only one that feels sad. I'm the only one that doesn't feel seen. I'm strange. What are people thinking about me? That is a common thing that I think most people, maybe not the narcissist, but most people experience that. But we don't have a space for that. And I don't think, so again, we just push through, we push, grow, do, wake up, get to the next thing on our list of things to do. When instead of just being in our reality, feeling what we're feeling, making a safe place for that, to name it, to own it, to let it go. We spend so much of our time fighting. And one of the things that drives me crazy, and I apologize up front to anyone that has cancer and uses this language, but I don't like the language fighting cancer. Because again, we get back to this where we have two opposing forces. If we're in a fight, someone's going to lose. If we say, what is my lesson, and allow it to pass through us, that's a very different experience. So for me, empathy is about creating a space for people so that instead of being in this fight with life, in this feeling alone, feeling like they're the only person, I like to create a space and make people feel seen and relate to them and know that I'm not there to, instruct them or lecture them, but I'm there to support, see, and help navigate the process with the human in front of me.
Yeah, absolutely. And Diane, I'm curious to ask you, what does it mean to prioritize ourselves as an investment, my friend? Because, I'm a big believer in self-reflection. It's helped me get through barriers and challenges in my life, and reflecting and then responding once I had a chance to, process what's going on. So I'm curious, how do you hold the importance of self-reflection as we build a self-image? What are your thoughts there?
I think there's nothing more important you can do, right? The answers, why are we so off balance? Because we're seeking outside of ourselves. We're going here and we're going there and we're looking there. The answers are all within. So in order to find the answers, we need to take that time to reflect upon ourselves and our responses and our desires and our path forward. When we can come within and trust ourselves fully, that's how you take your power back. Instead of, the government said this and big pharma is serving up this pharmaceutical to me today, and, this and this and this, the experts said. Instead, what do I think? Those people are here to inform us and support us. They're not here to decide for us. So we have to take all of the information and then reflect and make what is right for us. When we start to do that, we become extremely powerful and extremely successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And Diane, you mentioned earlier that you have the privilege of being at the table when decisions at a high level are made from a human resources perspective. And I, outside of hosting this podcast, talk as a businesses and organizations about building an inclusive culture with minimal effort and the importance of hiring folks with disabilities. So when we look at workforce diversity, I'm curious to ask you, how do you think we can change the attitudinal barrier of employers who are looking to diversify their workforce but are still hesitant to hire folks with disabilities? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, and it's not an easy it's not an easy fix because human beings fear what they don't know. So if they don't if they haven't experienced someone in their own life with a disability, they might find that scary to them. You know, we come into this world and we start dividing immediately. Well, you don't have the same political party as me. You don't have the same sexual preference as me. You know, like, and we start to divide and divide and divide, where we need to come back to a more holistic human place. And I do a lot with my leaders in terms of diversity. However, I'm really not the best, most educated voice on that. And I would recommend to anyone listening to this to check out my friend Stephanie Cawthorn, Dr. Stephanie Cawthorn, on her newly released book, Disability is Human. She also has a workbook that comes with this book, and she helps organizations move to a place of inclusivity and ableism. And the work she's doing is absolutely beautiful. So on that one, I have to completely defer to Dr. Stephanie. And, the work that I do hopefully is expanding the awareness of leadership within their organizations to be more inclusive and to appreciate diversity. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Diane, I also wanted to talk to you about burnout and how it's relating to making sure that we have the appropriate work-life balance. So I'm curious, for any Canadian who feels that they may be overworked and overwhelmed, how do you think they can reverse the feeling of burnout and get more balance back in their life?
Well, I highly recommend my own book.
I figured you might say that.
It's called Elevate Potential, A Conscious Approach to Success, and you can get it on Amazon. So the thing about burnout is you got to understand that it is not something you get to and then you fix. Like, if you're there, you got to fix it, and it's going to be harder, but you're going to need to do that. And it's going to take some time away to rest, but it's also going to take you. Resting your body isn't going to get you out of burnout. You're going to need to feed your soul as well. So what do you love to do, and how can you add more love back into your life? And then you got to look at, how can I nurture myself from a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual? All four of those realms make you a complete whole human. So you need to nurture all of those. But what my call to all Canadians is stop the zombie life and start building the resilience now. Don't get to the point of burnout. You don't need to do that. If you apply some of the principles in my book and proactively take your power back to have a vital, purposeful, full life, it is achievable, but you have to come within and make that declaration and do the work.
Yeah, it's again, going back to the notion of making a personal investment in yourself, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. And Diane, I'm also curious to ask you about this 2023 study from the Canadian Center for Occupational Health and Safety that reported that 42% of Canadians believe that they were going to get promoted within the next year, my friend. And tell me about the approach we take when we think we're going to get something like a promotion, when it happens, and when it doesn't, my friend. So how can we adapt to changes within the workplace? And I'm curious, do you think that number of 42% and 42% is high or low, or what you were kind of expecting? What are your thoughts there?
To clarify, 42% of people believe they were going to get a promotion or not?
Within the next year, yeah, within this calendar year. That's correct, yeah.
I would say that would be pretty accurate. In our Canadian workforce right now, the biggest challenge is we are losing baby boomers en masse. So that means positions at the top or upper are opening up left, right, and center. So even if you don't, like if you want to advance your career, you should always be preparing to be promotable. And what's the best way that you can do that? It's not stopping in your boss's office and saying, I deserve a promotion every day. It is being the very best that you can be in your current role. So what I see a lot of the times is sort of a martyr kind of persona that's like, oh, I'm so working so hard. And I'm like, that person believes that if they show how hard they work and, they're working the longest hours, that they're going to get the promotion because they care the most. But really, when we're looking for someone to get promoted, it's someone that has an ease in their current role. They're really good at their job. The team likes them. They have that balance. So if someone's showing as overwhelmed, they're probably not going to get promoted. I also have a really, affordable $97 course on my website called Advance Get Promoted Now, that if anyone is really keen to get promoted this year, it's a great resource and, has a script on how to ask for a promotion, because I've noticed in my career, people do that very badly. So that's a great resource if you're looking for a promotion. If you don't get a promotion and you're expecting one, it's again coming back with it. First of all, buy my book. It's only $22, like do more work on yourself. Show up as a more balanced, person. Be a great team player, do your job awesome, and be ready for the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. And my friend, if I gave you a magic wand and I told you you could only change one thing about how we develop workplace cultures today in Canada, what would you change and why?
Oh, let me see. I think the thing about cultures is, okay, this is what I would change. I would change that everyone understands how workplace cultures work. Because the biggest problem with workplace cultures is there's a culture, whether it's an intentional culture or not an intentional culture. And so in order to create an intentional culture that actually increases employee engagement, which in turn increases company revenue, you have to be intentional about that. And I work with companies to go through a process. In my training, we learn about employee culture, company culture, and the great cultures that, made billion-dollar companies that got sold to other billion-dollar companies. And really, it comes down to being intentional and being values-based, starting with the values, and bringing those off the walls and into the hearts, which means we're going back to the wholeness model of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, that there's more to it than just the body and the mind. We got to go beyond the body and the mind. We got to go beyond thought leaders and get into how do people feel at their work? What is the employee experience? We talk a lot about, what's the customer experience? And that's important because customer service is significantly flawed in most industries today. But what about the employee experience? Because if your employees have an excellent experience, that will translate down to your customer experience.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. And can I ask you also about relationship capital? And what I mean by that is, I believe that success in life is heavily motivated by putting yourself out there. Diane, I started this podcast 4.5 years ago, but a lot of people don't know that I uh, spent a lot of years in speech therapy because of as a result of my disability. Sometimes my words and my brain don't work the same way. So I always encourage when I talk to people, because a lot of people call me an inspirational person, and I simply tell them that I'm living my life, and I tell them that the importance or the key to living a great life is forming relationships with people that don't think and look like you. So I'm curious, how do you think we can promote a better culture of embracing, putting yourself out there and creating relationships?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because we are all, busy in our busyness, which is not a good strategy. Um, and we have social media nowadays, which has done a lot of that. But it also has been used in negative ways too. So I'm not really sure that's the best answer. I think I think it comes back to once again going within, because if you're confident in yourself and you value yourself and you trust yourself, you then aren't afraid of people or reaching out or knowing people, and you understand the value. The more you different perspectives you understand, the different cultures you understand, plus just the benefits of the great food you might be able to experience if you know different people, right? So again, it's about overcoming the fear. And I've been doing with a motto this year of I can do hard things, and because I never wrote a book before and I never published a book before. So but I would encourage everybody to make an effort. How can I expand, meet different people from different walks of life or different careers or different, um, cultures or abilities.
Points
And
of view, yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, and Diana, I know that you also encourage people to look at success as a bright light, my friend. So how do you think we can encourage people to embrace success more freely, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
I think success is defined differently for every single person. And I think the first thing people need to do is define what is success to me? What's important to me? And then the second question is that aligned with my priorities? And an exercise I have students do is write their own eulogy. So at the end of this life, how do you want to be remembered? What would be your legacy? What do you want people to say about you? And then is what you want them to say about you aligned with your actions and what you're doing now? Or is there some adjustment needed?
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked earlier about rejection, and as a public speaker, I know that both of us get rejected on a routine basis. But my speaking coach always says that it's a game of numbers, and sometimes it may not be the right opportunity at the right time. So it's always important to really know the value of your message when you deal with rejection. So I'm curious, how do you think society can better deal with rejection? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, we're very much trained to succeed, and share on social media only the glorious parts of our life and the pretty parts of our lives. And we don't really see failure, or I like to call it learning. Becoming an entrepreneur, I have failed and failed and failed, and feeling really comfortable with it at this point. I'm learning, but I really believe this is where I tap into that. Instead of the mental realm, I tap into that spiritual realm. Or that if spiritual word doesn't sit with you, what do you believe in? What's your belief system? And it's instead of rejection, it's a redirection. Because if I get this opportunity that I think I really want, but then there's something better and I'm not going to be able to get it because I'm full or I'm overbooked. So this trust thing coming back in this belief that I will be led to where I am supposed to be perfectly, and trusting in that, and knowing that, I think it was Abraham Lincoln that, like, he ran for president 8 times and didn't get elected before he got elected. Any superstar champion will tell you they had to fall down and fall down and fall down. And it feels like, from the great examples, the deeper the failure, the bigger the reward, or the bigger the comeback, or the bigger the Phoenix moment is. So, and without those moments, we can't feel, the duality of what's on the opposite side. Imagine if we went around and we're like happy, happy, happy all the time, it would be a bit Stepford wife. We wouldn't, without the lows, we don't really experience or value the highs. So I would just say rejection, failure is a natural part of the life experience. Take it, allow the humbling experience, ask what you learned from it, and get up and go.
Yeah, absolutely. And my friend, as we end our conversation this afternoon, I'm always fascinated to talk to Canadians because I talk to a lot of Americans doing an international podcast. But I'm wondering your thoughts. What's the best part about being Canadian for you, my friend?
Well, what is the best part about being Canadian? There's so many great parts about being Canadian. I think that Canadians are a lot, very open-minded. I value our mosaic culture. We're polite. Politeness is a good thing. Yeah. I think we have a good, strong work ethic because, based in, our ancestors and the pioneer days that they went through. I just feel like we're a little bit more open-minded than some parts of the world. I won't name names. And there's more of a culture of togetherness, more of a we than a me. And I really am proud of that.
Well, yeah, and I tell you, if you want to be Canadian, embrace hockey. Right now, I'm only kidding, but
you're what? Say that again.
I said to be a true Canadian, you have to embrace hockey. Right now,
oh, absolutely, and yes, go Canucks, go.
I know that as I used to be a sports reporter, and I know that you're a fan of the Canucks, and it really gets you going, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. Yeah.
Absolutely. And tell me, what's your favorite Canadian food, my friend?
Canadian. Well, I'm one of my specialties is the butter tart.
Okay.
So my children, I just made them this past weekend. My daughter was busy all weekend writing report cards, so her favorite is the butter tarts. So I baked some butter tarts, and that always goes over well. So I would say that. I unfortunately, I really love poutine too, but it's not the best choice.
It's not the healthiest choice, but we're all entitled to a guilty pleasure, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, and in the spirit of sharing, I'll tell you, my favorite is pancakes or French toast with maple syrup. Okay, that's my favorite. Okay.
Nice.
And I have to tell you that my dad is American, so I get to be thankful every year. So I get turkey twice a year, and I never complain about it, okay?
That's wonderful, yes.
Absolutely. And my friend, finally, tell me, I'm curious to end our conversation by asking you, what are you most thankful for in life? And, if I threw you a lifetime achievement party at the end of the course of your professional existence in life, and I asked your best friend or those that are closest to you to give a toast at your lifetime achievement party, what do you think you would want them to say?
Well, it's an interesting question because I just had an experience like that at my book launch party where people came that I work with, and my very favorite boss, who I speak about in my book, The Conscious Leader, came from, it was a virtual party. So he was in attendance from Florida. And, a young woman that I've coached for about 8 years now was on sharing stories. So I got to experience some of that, and it was really, really wonderful. Um, Outside of my career, what is bigger than my career, what I'm most proud about in my life is being a mom and being an open-minded, supportive, unconditional, loving mom. So that's my number one. And then in terms of my career, I think if I just helped people be better, like my purpose in this life is to help other human beings shine brighter. So if I help someone and discover something that helped them become a little bit more conscious, that then they went and they, lit the world on fire, nothing is more rewarding to me than to see my clients thriving. And I get to see that and be at the front row of seeing that every day I do my work. So I think everyone would say that I loved my work and that I really deeply cared about them and their success and was pivotal in helping them create that.
Well, absolutely. That's a statement to certainly be proud of, my friend. And tell me, if people want to get connected with you or buy your book, what's the best way they can do that?
Well, you can buy my book, Elevate Potential, A Conscious Approach to Success, on Amazon. You can find me on my website at glowleadership.com. And you can follow me on Instagram or TikTok at Glow Leadership.
Well, fabulous. Diane, I have to tell you, I've been looking forward to this conversation all day, and you certainly didn't disappoint, my friend. I want to thank you for the good work that you're doing to elevate the need for conscious leadership and for joining me today to engage in conversation. It's most appreciated, my friend. This was great.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It was my pleasure to spend this time with you, and I appreciate the time we had together. Thank you.